Welcome to a journey through the fascinating lives of authors, those remarkable individuals who have shaped our literature, our culture, and our imaginations. Tonight, we'll explore the stories behind the stories, the quiet moments, the curious habits, and the unexpected turns that mark the lives of writers throughout history. Let's begin our journey in the early 17th century, in England, where the role of poet was about to receive official recognition for the very first time. In the year 1616, a playwright and poet named Ben Jonson achieved something no one before him had accomplished. He became the first official poet laureate of England. This wasn't just an honorary title, it was a position of genuine importance, recognizing poetry as a vital part of the nation's cultural life. Jonson, a contemporary of Shakespeare, was known for his sharp wit and classical learning. His appointment marked the beginning of a tradition that continues to this day, a long line of poets who would serve as the voice of the nation in verse. The tradition of honoring writers would continue to evolve over the centuries, taking on new forms and reaching across borders. Fast forward nearly 300 years, to the dawn of the 20th century, to the year 1901, when the world witnessed the birth of what would become one of the most prestigious awards in all of literature. The Nobel Prize in Literature was established as part of Alfred Nobel's vision to recognize those who had conferred the greatest benefit to humankind. And the very first person to receive this honor was a French writer named Sully Prudhomme. His poetry explored philosophical themes, the nature of knowledge, and the depths of human emotion. Though his name may not be as familiar today as some who followed him, Prudhomme holds a unique place in literary history, the first of many writers to stand on that distinguished stage in Stockholm. But let us travel back even further now, back to medieval England, to a time when English literature as we know it was just beginning to take shape. There was a man whose very name connects him to a humble craft. Geoffrey Chaucer. His surname comes from the French word for shoemaker. It's a fascinating reminder that even the greatest literary figures often came from ordinary backgrounds. Chaucer's father was a vintner, a wine merchant, and the family name reflected the trade of earlier generations. From these practical, working roots would emerge one of the most important voices in the English language. And what a voice it was! Chaucer is often called the father of English literature, and for good reason. At a time when most serious writing was done in Latin or French, Chaucer chose to write in English, the language of everyday people. His most famous work, the Canterbury Tales, brought together pilgrims from all walks of life, each telling their own story. Through their voices, Chaucer captured the full spectrum of medieval society, the knight and the miller, the prioress and the wife of Bath, all rendered with humor, insight, and remarkable humanity. Chaucer's importance was recognized even in his own time and immediately after his death. He was the first poet ever to be buried in what would become known as Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. that section of the abbey would grow over the centuries to include memorials to many of England's greatest writers, but Chaucer was there first, honored as the one who had helped create a literature worthy of the English language itself. Now let us cross the Atlantic to the early American colonies, where literature was just beginning to take root in new soil. In this new world, poetry faced particular challenges. The Puritan settlers valued plain speech and practical matters. The idea of a woman publishing poetry was nearly unthinkable. Yet in this unlikely environment, one woman's voice would break through. And Bradstreet was the first woman in the American colonies to have a book of poetry published. She had come to Massachusetts from England in 1630, part of the Great Puritan Migration. Life in the colonies was hard. There were illnesses to endure, children to raise, a household to manage. Yet somehow, in the midst of all these demands, Bradstreet found time to write. Her poems explored her faith, her love for her husband, her feelings about motherhood. They were personal, thoughtful, and beautifully crafted. Her book, The 10th Muse, lately sprung up in America, was published in London in 1650. Interestingly, Bradstreet herself hadn't sought publication. Her brother-in-law had taken her poems to England without her knowledge. The book created quite a stir. Here was a woman, in the rough colonial frontier, producing poetry that could stand alongside the work of educated men. After Anne Bradstreet's death, her husband collected more of her poems. These were published posthumously, giving the world an even fuller picture of her talent. In these later poems, we see Bradstreet at her most personal, reflecting on loss, on the passing of time, on the small domestic moments that make up a life. Through her husband's care in preserving and sharing her work, Bradstreet's voice has echoed down through the centuries. Let us journey now to ancient Greece, to a poet whose words carried a very different kind of power. The Greek poet Hipponax lived in the 6th century BC, and he was known for something quite specific: his satirical verses. But this wasn't gentle satire, the kind that makes you chuckle and move on. Hipponax's satire was vicious, cutting, brutal. He targeted individuals with such ferocity that legend says some of his victims actually killed themselves rather than endure the shame of his mockery. Whether this dark legend is true or exaggerated by time, we cannot know, but it speaks to the very real power of words, the way a poet's pen could wound as deeply as any sword. From ancient cruelty, let us turn to modern celebration, to Scotland, where one poet is honored each year with a special night dedicated to his memory. Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet, lived in the late 18th century. He wrote in both Scots and English, capturing the spirit, the humor, and the heart of Scottish life. His poems and songs, including Auld Lang Syne, which the world sings every New Year's Eve, have made him beloved far beyond Scotland's borders. But in Scotland itself, Burns is celebrated with particular warmth. Every year on January 25th, his birthday, people gather for Burns Night. They recite his poems, sing his songs, eat traditional Scottish fare including haggis, which Burns immortalized in verse, and they raise a glass to his memory. It's a beautiful tradition, one poet's birthday, celebrated with joy and reverence more than 2 centuries after his death. In Amsterdam, poetry serves a different but equally moving purpose. The city has a remarkable tradition. Poets are commissioned to write funeral poems for people who die with no family or friends. Imagine that, someone passes from this world alone, with no one to mourn them, no one to mark their passing. But they are not forgotten. A poet creates words for them, a poem that honors their life, that acknowledges they existed, that they mattered. It's a profound act of compassion, the city using poetry to ensure that no death goes completely unwitnessed, that even the loneliest person receives a final tribute. And finally, we come to a story that shows poetry's power to comfort even in the darkest circumstances. Robert Desnos was a French surrealist poet, known for his experimental, dreamlike verse. During World War II, he was arrested by the Gestapo for his work in the French Resistance. He was sent to concentration camps, first Auschwitz, then Buchenwald, then Terezin. In these places of unimaginable horror, Desnos found a way to bring hope to his fellow prisoners. He would read their palms, telling them fortunes, not real fortunes, but hopeful ones. He told them they would survive, that they would see their families again, that better days were coming. He used his imagination, his gift for storytelling, to give people something to hold on to. Sadly, Desnos himself did not survive. He died of typhus just weeks after liberation. But those who knew him remembered his kindness, his creativity, his refusal to let despair have the final word. These 10 authors, from different times, different places, different traditions, each found their own way to make words matter. Some received official honors. Some broke new ground. Some used their words to wound, others to comfort. But all of them remind us that literature is more than just books on a shelf. It's a living tradition, passed down through generations, shaped by individual voices, each adding something unique to the great conversation that spans centuries. Rest now, and let these stories settle into your thoughts, like gentle snow falling on old pages. Writers have always had complicated relationships with their own names, with their identities, with how they present themselves to the world. Some hide behind pseudonyms. Some reveal only parts of themselves. Others construct entirely new personas. Tonight, we explore the hidden lives of authors, the names they chose, the secrets they kept, and the reasons they had for stepping into shadow. Let us begin in Victorian England, in an era when a woman who wished to be taken seriously as a writer faced a difficult choice. Marian Evans knew that the literary world of her time was not kind to female authors. Women writers were often dismissed, their work considered lightweight, suitable only for other women. But Evans had ambitions that reached far beyond the narrow expectations of her era. She wanted to write serious novels, novels that grappled with morality, society, philosophy, and human nature in all its complexity. And so she made a decision. She would write under a male pen name. She chose the name George Eliot. George, a simple, solid, masculine name. Eliot, distinguished, literary. Under this name, she would publish some of the greatest novels of the 19th century. Middlemarch, The Mill on the Floss, Silas Marner. Her work was praised by critics who had no idea they were reading a woman's words. It was a disguise born of necessity, but also a kind of freedom. Behind that male name, Evans could write anything she wanted, could tackle any subject, could be as ambitious and brilliant as her considerable talents allowed. The strategy worked. By the time her true identity became known, her reputation was so firmly established that it couldn't be dismissed. George Eliot was recognized as one of the great minds of her generation, and Marian Evans had proven that genius has no gender. Another woman writer of an earlier era faced similar challenges, though her story is less well known today. Eliza Haywood was remarkably prolific. She wrote around 70 works over the course of her career. In her early years, she wrote scandalous novels that were wildly popular. But as she matured, her focus shifted. She became increasingly interested in women's agency, in female characters who made their own choices, who navigated a world that sought to constrain them. Haywood wasn't just a writer, though. She was also an actress, performing on the London stage. And she worked as a publisher, helping to bring other writers' work into the world. She understood the literary marketplace from every angle: creator, performer, and businesswoman. In an age when women's options were severely limited, Haywood carved out a multifaceted career, using every talent she possessed. Now let's turn to a rather extraordinary offer made to a Victorian novelist, an offer so unusual it seems almost impossible to believe. Edward Bulwer-Lytton was a successful novelist, the man who gave us the famous phrase, "The pen is mightier than the sword." But his fame extended beyond literature. He was also a politician, a dramatist, a public figure of considerable influence. And at one point in his life, he was offered something remarkable, the throne of Greece. Yes, an actual throne. A kingdom. This wasn't a joke or a symbolic gesture. It was a genuine political offer during a turbulent period in Greek history. Bulwer-Lytton declined, choosing instead to continue his literary and political career in England. One wonders what he thought in that moment, contemplating a crown, then setting it aside to return to his writing desk. In our own time, Anne anonymity has taken on new meaning for one Italian author who has captivated millions of readers while revealing almost nothing about herself. Elena Ferrante burst onto the international literary scene with her Neapolitan novels, for books that follow the lifelong friendship of two women in post-war Naples. The books are intensely personal, emotionally raw, psychologically complex. They became global bestsellers, translated into dozens of languages, adapted for television. And through it all, Elena Ferrante has remained anonymous. No one knows for certain who she is. Various journalists have investigated, proposed theories, even claimed to have uncovered her identity, but Ferrante herself has never confirmed anything. Why this insistence on anonymity? Ferrante has explained that it allows her to write freely, without the distractions of fame, without the pressure of public appearances and interviews, without the need to perform the role of author. She can focus entirely on the work itself. The books stand alone. The words speak for themselves. There's something almost radical about this in our age of constant self-promotion, a writer who lets the writing be enough. Another contemporary author who values privacy, though for different reasons, is Thomas Pynchon. Pynchon is known for dense, complex novels filled with paranoia, conspiracy, and encyclopedic detail. He's also known for being extraordinarily reclusive. Very few photographs of him exist. He rarely gives interviews. He lives a quiet, private life, far from the literary spotlight. And yet we know this small detail about him. His middle name is Ruggles. Thomas Ruggles Pynchon. It's a curious, old-fashioned name, the kind of detail that feels somehow fitting for a writer who seems to exist slightly outside of time. The use of a pen name can serve many purposes. For John Le Carre, it was a professional necessity tied to his work in British intelligence. Before he became one of the world's most celebrated spy novelists, John Le Carre worked for both MI5 and MI6. His real name was David Cornwell, and when he began writing novels, he needed a pseudonym. Intelligence officers weren't permitted to publish under their own names. So David Cornwell became John Le Carre, and under that name he wrote The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and many other brilliant novels that redefined the genre. Years later, long after he'd left the intelligence services, Le Carre admitted something rather charming. He no longer remembered exactly how he had chosen his pen name. It had been a practical decision made decades earlier, and the specific reasoning behind it had simply faded from memory. The name had become more real to him than the process of selecting it. John Le Carre had, in a sense, become his true identity. These writers understood something fundamental about the relationship between identity and art. Sometimes you need to hide to reveal the truth. Sometimes a mask allows for greater honesty. Sometimes the person you create is more authentic than the person you were born as. Mary and Evans became George Eliot to be taken seriously. Elena Ferrante chose anonymity to write freely. John le Carré needed a pseudonym because of his clandestine work. Each had their own reasons, but all discovered that identity is more fluid than we might think. The name on the cover of a book is just the beginning of the story. Behind that name, or hidden by it, is a human being with their own complexities, their own struggles, their own need to be heard. In a world that constantly demands we present ourselves, declare ourselves, brand ourselves, these writers remind us that there's power in mystery, power in privacy, power in letting the work speak louder than the person behind it. And so we see that the relationship between an author and their name can be as complicated as any character they create. Some step into new names like actors stepping into roles. Others guard their true names like precious secrets. And still others find that over time, the name they chose becomes more real than the one they were given. Rest now with these stories of hidden identities and revealed truths. Let them drift through your mind like shadows on a page. Not all great literature emerges from grand adventures or dramatic lives. Some of the most profound writing comes from quiet domestic worlds, from drawing rooms and gardens, from solitary bedrooms and family homes. Tonight, we visit authors who found their material close to home, who transformed the everyday into something timeless. Let us begin with Jane Austen, one of English literature's most beloved voices, a writer who rarely left her small corner of the world, yet understood human nature with extraordinary depth. Jane Austen lived most of her life in rural England, moving between her family home and her brother's estates. She never married. She never traveled far. Her world was one of morning calls and evening gatherings, of walks in the countryside and letters by the fire. And from this quiet life, she created novels that dissected society with surgical precision, novels about love and money, pride and prejudice, sense and sensibility. Interestingly, Austen is credited with the early use of a word that would become increasingly important in modern literature, the word outsider. In her novel Persuasion, she uses the term to describe someone who doesn't quite belong, who observes from the margins. It's fitting, in a way. Austen herself was something of an outsider, a woman writing in a male-dominated world, a keen observer of a society in which she participated but also critiqued. Austen had her practical side too. She brewed her own beer, a common household task in her era, when beer was safer to drink than water. One imagines her in the brewery, measuring ingredients, tending the fermentation, her mind perhaps already working on the next chapter of Emma or Mansfield Park. And then there's a curious moment in Austen's life that reveals something about her character. She once accepted a marriage proposal, and then, just one night later, changed her mind and declined it. The man was wealthy, well-connected. Marrying him would have secured her future, given her financial stability, ended her dependence on her family. But Austen knew that marriage without love would be a kind of prison. So she said no. It was a brave choice, one that meant she would remain dependent, uncertain of her future. But it also meant she could keep writing, could remain true to herself. That decision, made in a single night, shaped the rest of her life. Let us move forward now to 19th century America, to another woman who chose a life of almost complete seclusion. Emily Dickinson lived in Amherst, Massachusetts, in a world that grew smaller and smaller as she aged. She became so reclusive that she rarely left her house, and eventually rarely left her room. She dressed in white. She tended her garden. She maintained a few close friendships through letters. But mostly, she withdrew from the world. And in that withdrawal, she wrote. She wrote over 1,700 poems, compact, intense, mysterious poems that broke all the rules of conventional verse. She wrote about death and immortality, about nature and consciousness, about love and despair. She wrote on scraps of paper, the backs of recipes, whatever was at hand. And she shared almost none of it. Only a handful of her poems were published during her lifetime, and those mostly without her permission. Dickinson's poems were discovered after her death by her sister Lavinia, who found them carefully sewn into little booklets, hidden in a drawer. The world had no idea that this reclusive woman had been creating some of the most original poetry in the English language. And here's a final detail about Dickinson that feels almost like poetry itself. Her last written words, in a note sent to her cousins, were simply these two words: called back. She died shortly after. What did she mean? Was it a reference to a book she'd been reading? A spiritual statement about death? A simple explanation that she'd been called away? We'll never know. But those two words have resonated ever since, mysterious, open to interpretation, just like her poems. Now let's turn to another literary giant who also preferred solitude and found unconventional ways to work. Virginia Woolf. Woolf came from a literary family. She was actually the granddaughter of William Makepeace Thackeray, the author of Vanity Fair. Growing up surrounded by books and intellectuals, she absorbed the world of letters from childhood. But she would forge her own path, creating novels that pushed the boundaries of form and consciousness. Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, The Waves, works that captured the flow of thought itself. Together with her husband Leonard, Woolf helped run the Hogarth Press, a small publishing house they founded in their home. They started modestly, hand-printing books in their dining room. Over time, the press grew, publishing not just Virginia's work but also the first English translations of Sigmund Freud, as well as works by T.S. Eliot, Catherine Mansfield, and other modernist writers. It was a labor of love, and also a way for Virginia to maintain control over her own work, to be free from the constraints and demands of commercial publishers. Woolf had a particular quirk when it came to her writing process. She preferred to write while standing up. Many writers do this, finding that it helps with concentration, with energy, with the flow of thought. But Woolf took it a step further. She used a tall desk, specially designed so she could stand comfortably while working. One imagines her there, standing at her desk, pen in hand, watching the sentences take shape, the physical act of standing somehow connected to the mental act of creation. These three women, Austen, Dickinson, Woolf, each created their own domestic world and transformed it into art. Austen took the social rituals of her class and revealed the human drama beneath the manners. Dickinson turned her bedroom into a laboratory of consciousness. Woolf made her home both a creative space and a publishing house, blurring the boundaries between private and public life. Their lives might appear limited from the outside, confined to homes, to small social circles, to prescribed roles. But their minds ranged freely. They proved that you don't need to travel the world to write about it. You don't need grand adventures to understand the human heart. Sometimes the most profound truths are found in the quietest places, in a morning room in Hampshire, in a bedroom in Amherst, in a London townhouse with a tall desk by the window. These writers show us that the domestic sphere isn't a limitation, it's a world unto itself. And for those with the vision to see clearly, to observe closely, to feel deeply, the everyday can become extraordinary. A refused marriage proposal becomes a statement about autonomy. 1,700 hidden poems become a revolution in verse. A tall desk becomes the site where consciousness itself is captured in words. And so we leave these quiet domestic worlds, these rooms where great literature was born not in spite of their stillness, but because of it. In the silence, these writers could hear themselves think. In the solitude, they could see clearly. In the familiar routines of daily life, they found infinite material for exploration. Let these peaceful scenes settle into your thoughts now, the scratch of a pen, the turning of a page, the soft light of a lamp in a quiet room. Rest with the knowledge that great things can happen in small, still places. As America found its identity as a nation, it also began to find its literary voice. Writers emerged who captured the American experience, its landscapes, its contradictions, its ideals and failures. Tonight, we explore some of these distinctly American voices, the writers who helped define what it meant to be an American author. Let us begin with one of America's most recognizable literary figures, though the name most people know him by was not the name he was born with. Samuel Langhorne Clemens was born in Missouri in 1835. He would eventually become famous around the world, but not as Samuel Clemens. The name he chose for himself was Mark Twain, a phrase from his days working as a steamboat pilot on the Mississippi River. Mark Twain was a riverboat term meaning 2 fathoms deep, safe water for navigation. It was a perfect name for a writer who would navigate the currents of American culture with such skill and insight. Those years on the Mississippi were formative for Twain. He learned the river, every bend and sandbar, every current and hazard. He learned to read the water, to understand what lay beneath its surface. And he learned about people, the passengers and crew, the river towns and their inhabitants. All of this would pour into his writing, especially his masterpieces about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, books that captured the American frontier spirit, the moral complexities of a nation still grappling with slavery, and the eternal appeal of freedom and adventure. Later in life, Twain settled in Hartford, Connecticut, in a grand house that reflected his success. And his neighbor there was another American literary icon, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Yes, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, the novel that Abraham Lincoln reportedly said started the Civil War, lived right next door to Mark Twain. One imagines them meeting on the street between their houses, exchanging pleasantries, two writers who had each, in their own way, shaped the American conscience. There's something almost mystical about the timing of Twain's life. He was born in 1835, the same year that Halley's Comet appeared in the sky. 75 years later, when the comet returned in 1910, Twain died. He had predicted this himself, saying that since he'd come in with the comet, he expected to go out with it. And so he did, as if his life were bookended by this celestial visitor, his entrance and exit marked by the heavens. Twain wasn't just a writer, he was also an inventor. He patented a self-pasting scrapbook, a clever innovation that featured pages with dried adhesive already on them. You could simply moisten the page and paste in your clippings or photographs. It was actually quite successful commercially, one of the few business ventures that made Twain money rather than losing it. It's a reminder that his creative mind worked in multiple directions, always inventing, always trying something new. Now let us turn to another American writer, one whose life took a very different path, through service, sacrifice, and eventual literary fame. Louisa May Alcott came from a family of idealists and reformers in Concord, Massachusetts. Her father was a philosopher and educator. Her family friends included Thoreau and Emerson. They had high ideals, but little money. Louisa knew from a young age that she would need to support herself and help her family. When the Civil War broke out, Alcott volunteered to serve as a nurse in a Union hospital in Washington. She was 30 years old, unmarried, and determined to do her part. The hospital was a converted hotel, the conditions were primitive, and the work was grueling and heartbreaking. She tended to wounded soldiers, wrote letters for those who couldn't write themselves, held hands with the dying. Those experiences became the basis for her book Hospital Sketches, published in 1863. The book brought her first real literary success, and it also showed her power as a writer. She could take her direct experiences and transform them into vivid, moving prose that brought readers right into the hospital wards. But there was a cost to her service. At the hospital, Alcott contracted typhoid fever. The doctors treated her with mercury, which was standard medical practice at the time, but it was also poisonous. The mercury treatment damaged her health permanently. For the rest of her life, she suffered from weakness, pain, and various ailments, all stemming from that toxic cure. She had given her health and service to her country. After the war, Alcott returned to writing, supporting herself and her family with her pen. And here's something many people don't know about the author of Little Women. She also wrote thrillers under pseudonyms. Lurid tales of passion, revenge, and scandal, stories she called her blood and thunder tales. They paid well, and they let her explore a different kind of writing, darker and more sensational than the domestic novels she published under her own name. When her publisher asked her to write a book for girls, she was reluctant. She wasn't sure she could do it. But she drew on her own childhood, on her sisters, on her family's struggles and joys, and in about 3 months, she produced Little Women. The book was an immediate success. It made her famous and finally gave her financial security. But perhaps more importantly, it gave generations of readers a story about sisterhood, about family, about growing up and finding your own path. These American writers, Twain and Stowe, neighbors in Hartford, Alcott, nursing soldiers and then creating one of the most beloved novels in American literature, they captured different facets of the American experience. Twain gave us the Mississippi River, the frontier, the comic and tragic contradictions of a nation built on both democracy and slavery. Alcott gave us the domestic sphere, the struggles of women and families, the way character is forged through hardship and kindness. They wrote from different perspectives, in different styles, about different aspects of American life. But they shared something essential, a commitment to truthfulness, to capturing life as it really was. Twain's humor had a sharp edge. He used laughter to reveal uncomfortable truths. Alcott's domestic novels had depth and moral seriousness. She never talked down to her readers, never simplified the complexities of life. And both of them understood that American literature needed to find its own voice, distinct from European traditions, rooted in American soil and American experience. Twain found it in the vernacular, in the speech of common people, in the rhythms of American talk. Alcott found it in the daily lives of ordinary families, in the small moral choices that shape character. Together, these writers and others like them created a literature that was unmistakably American, optimistic and skeptical, idealistic and pragmatic, rooted in specific places but reaching for universal truths. They showed that American stories were worth telling, that American voices were worth hearing. Rest now with these American scenes, the Mississippi River flowing endlessly south, a hospital ward where a young woman tends the wounded, neighboring houses in Hartford where two great writers lived side by side. Let the American landscape drift through your thoughts, its rivers and battlefields, its small New England towns and wide western spaces. Some books come easily, flowing from inspiration to completion with few obstacles. But others are born from struggle, written despite illness, loss, political persecution, or circumstances that would stop most people from even trying. Tonight, we explore writers who persevered through hardship, who found ways to create even when creation seemed impossible. We've already heard about Louisa May Alcott's dedication and her struggles, and here's one more testament to her determination. She wrote Little Women, a novel that would become an American classic, in about 3 months. 3 months. While still dealing with the health problems caused by her wartime mercury treatment, while supporting her family, while managing all the demands of daily life, she produced a work of enduring genius in less time than a single season. The speed is remarkable, but what's even more remarkable is the quality. This wasn't a rushed or careless book. It was carefully crafted, emotionally true, full of memorable characters and scenes. Alcott had lived with these characters in her imagination for years. They were based on herself and her sisters, after all. When the time came to write them down, they poured out of her with remarkable fluency. Loss and recreation mark another writer's story, a tale of devastating setback followed by extraordinary perseverance. T.E. Lawrence. Lawrence of Arabia was not just a military figure but also a writer. After his experiences in the Middle East during World War I, he wrote a manuscript about those years, a detailed, carefully crafted account of the Arab Revolt. Then, disaster struck. He lost the manuscript. Some accounts say it was left in a train station, others mention it being stolen. Either way, years of work simply vanished. What would you do in such a situation? Many would give up, overwhelmed by the loss. But Lawrence sat down and rewrote the entire book from memory and from notes. The result was 7 Pillars of Wisdom, a literary masterpiece that combined military history, personal memoir, and philosophical reflection. The loss and recreation changed the book. The second version was different from the first, perhaps deeper, more reflective. Sometimes what we create from memory and loss has a different kind of truth than what we create from direct experience. Illness and injury have shaped many writers' lives, sometimes providing unexpected opportunities for creation. Samuel Beckett, the Irish playwright and novelist known for works like Waiting for Godot, found himself hospitalized at one point. And what did he do while recovering? He edited his novel Murphy. The hospital became his writing room. The enforced stillness of recovery became time for revision and refinement. And there's a touching connection here. When Beckett was hospitalized, James Joyce, the author of Ulysses, one of the most important novels of the 20th century, helped pay for Beckett's medical care. Joyce, already a giant of modernist literature, supporting the younger Irish writer who would himself become a literary giant. It's a reminder that behind the solitary act of writing lies a community of writers, supporting each other, helping each other through difficulties. Joyce himself knew hardship intimately. He struggled with severe eye problems throughout his life, undergoing numerous operations, sometimes barely able to see. He wrote much of Ulysses while dealing with these visual difficulties, squinting at pages, working in special lighting, pushing through pain and frustration. The book itself is full of visual imagery, of color and light, created by a man who could barely see. And Ulysses, when it was finally published, faced another kind of hardship. It was banned in several countries for obscenity. The United States, the United Kingdom, and others refused to allow it to be sold or imported. Joyce's masterpiece was treated as pornography, as dangerous, as corrupting. It took years of legal battles before the ban was lifted and the book could be freely read. Joyce persevered through eye problems to write it, then watched as governments tried to suppress it. But the book survived, because great literature always finds a way. Political persecution has silenced many writers, or tried to. Boris Pasternak, the Russian author of Dr. Zhivago, experienced this firsthand. His novel, which told the story of a man struggling to maintain his humanity during the Russian Revolution and its aftermath, was seen as subversive by Soviet authorities. It couldn't be published in the Soviet Union, but it was published abroad and became an international sensation. In 1958, Pasternak was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, it became a crisis. The Soviet government was furious. They pressured Pasternak to refuse the prize. They threatened him, threatened his family, made it clear that accepting the Nobel could have severe consequences. And so Pasternak, under this enormous pressure, refused the award. He sent a telegram to the Swedish Academy declining the honor. It was a moment of terrible sadness, a writer forced to reject the highest recognition of his art because of political fear. Another Nobel Prize winner fared better, but only after many years of dedication to his craft. Gabriel Garcia Marquez won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1982, recognition for a body of work that had transformed literature. His novels, especially 100 Years of Solitude, helped define magical realism, a style that blended the everyday and the fantastical, that made magic seem natural and reality seem strange. But before he was a novelist, Marquez began his career as a journalist. He learned to observe, to interview, to gather facts, to tell true stories. This journalistic training shaped his fiction, even when he was writing about flying carpets and levitating priests. There was a groundedness to his work, attention to concrete detail that made the impossible feel real. Marquez helped define magical realism not just through his own work, but by showing other writers what was possible. He proved that Latin American literature didn't need to imitate European models, that it could draw on its own traditions, its own folklore, its own way of seeing the world. His influence spread across continents, inspiring writers everywhere to trust their own cultural perspectives, to blend reality and myth in new ways. These writers faced obstacles that would have stopped lesser talents. Lost manuscripts, political persecution, physical illness, censorship, financial struggle. But they persisted. They found ways to work despite everything. And in some cases, the hardship itself became part of what made their work powerful. Lawrence's rewritten book had a depth that perhaps the original lacked. Joyce's problems forced him to see in new ways, to value each word because words were so hard-won. Pasternak's persecution gave Dr. Zhivago an urgency, a sense of bearing witness that might not have been there otherwise. Marquez's years as a journalist taught him skills that would serve his fiction throughout his career. Hardship doesn't guarantee great art, but it can forge dedication, focus, and depth. It can teach a writer what really matters. It can strip away everything non-essential and leave only the truest voice. And so we see that literature is not created in ideal conditions. It's created despite conditions. In hospital rooms and through failing eyesight. Under political pressure and after devastating loss. By people who could have given up but chose to continue. By people who believed their words mattered enough to fight for them. Rest now with these stories of perseverance, of work continued despite every obstacle. Let them remind you that the most valuable things are often the hardest ones. Writing is solitary work that requires discipline, and every writer develops their own routines, their own ways of summoning the creativity and focus needed to fill blank pages. Some write in the morning, some at night. Some need silence, others need noise. Tonight, we explore the daily habits and routines that sustain some of literature's greatest voices. We've spoken of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and his groundbreaking work in magical realism. But beyond any single book or style, Marquez helped define magical realism as a literary movement, a way of seeing and representing reality that would influence writers around the world. His approach made the extraordinary feel ordinary and the ordinary feel extraordinary, showing that the division between real and magical might not be as clear as we assume. Now let's turn to the physical act of writing itself, to the question of how writers position their bodies as they work. Ernest Hemingway is famous for many things: his spare prose style, his adventurous life, his novels and stories about war, bullfighting, fishing, and masculine grace under pressure. But he's also known for a particular writing habit. Hemingway often wrote standing up. He would work at a specially arranged stand, typing or writing by hand while on his feet. He said it helped him concentrate, helped him stay energized, kept the prose lean and active. Hemingway wasn't alone in this preference. Albert Camus, the French-Algerian philosopher and novelist, author of The Stranger and the Plague, also preferred writing while standing. There's something about the physical posture of standing that seems to focus certain minds. Perhaps the slight discomfort keeps you sharp, prevents you from settling into drowsiness or distraction. And then there's Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Carroll also wrote standing up, but he added his own distinctive touch. He wrote with purple ink. Imagine opening a letter from Lewis Carroll and seeing those whimsical words flowing in purple across the page. It's such a perfectly Carroll-like detail, unexpected, slightly eccentric, memorable. Not every writer prefers to stand, of course. Truman Capote had exactly the opposite approach. Capote wrote lying down. He called himself a horizontal author, and he meant it quite literally. He would recline on a sofa or bed, with paper and pencil or a typewriter somehow arranged for this awkward position. He said he couldn't think clearly unless he was lying down, that he needed to be horizontal to let his mind work. It's amusing to imagine these writers. Hemingway at his standing desk, all focus and energy, and Capote reclining on his sofa, languid and horizontal. Two completely different physical approaches, but both producing brilliant work. It's a reminder that there's no single right way to write. Every writer has to discover what works for their particular mind and body. Some writers rely on substances to fuel their work. Honoré de Balzac, the French novelist who produced an enormous body of work in the first half of the 19th century, was legendary for his coffee consumption. He drank up to 50 cups of coffee daily. 50 cups. It's hard to even imagine. The caffeine must have been coursing through his veins constantly. Balzac believed coffee sharpened his mind, helped him work through the night, allowed him to maintain the punishing schedule he set for himself. He would work for 12, 15, 18 hours at a stretch, fueled by coffee, racing to meet deadlines and produce the dozens of novels and stories that would make up his human comedy, a vast, interconnected portrait of French society. Whether the coffee actually helped or was slowly destroying his health, or both, we can say for certain that Balzac couldn't imagine working without it. In our own time, some writers have found that physical discipline supports creative discipline. Haruki Murakami, the Japanese novelist known for surreal, dreamlike narratives, has a remarkably structured routine. He rises early every morning, writes for several hours, and then runs or swims. This pattern repeats day after day, year after year. The physical exercise is as important to him as the writing, or rather, it's part of the writing process. Murakami has compared novel writing to marathon training. Both require endurance, patience, the ability to keep going when you're tired. Both require you to build up strength gradually. Both test your commitment over long stretches of time. And just as a marathon runner trains their body, Murakami trains both body and mind, the morning run preparing him for the long-distance work of writing a novel. Then there are the writers whose routines border on ritual, whose connection to their work extends beyond the hours of actual writing. Joan Didion, the American essayist and novelist known for her cool, precise prose, had an unusual habit. When she finished a manuscript, she would sleep beside it. Yes, literally sleep with the completed pages near her bed. She said this kept her connected to the work, allowed her to remain close to it even when the writing was done. It's an intimate gesture, treating the manuscript almost like a companion, something alive that needs her presence. And we've already mentioned Virginia Woolf's preference for writing at a tall desk while standing, a physical routine that shaped her daily work and perhaps influenced the flow of her experimental, consciousness-based prose. These routines might seem like mere quirks, but they're actually profound statements about the relationship between a writer and their work. The routine creates a boundary, a protected space where the writing can happen. It signals to the mind that now is the time for creation. It shuts out the chaos of the world and creates a small, controlled environment where the imagination can operate. Whether it's standing or lying down, purple ink or 50 cups of coffee, early morning runs or manuscripts beside the bed, each routine serves the same purpose. It makes the work possible. It creates the conditions under which blank pages can become filled pages, which thoughts can become sentences, which imagination can become art. The routine is different for each writer because each writer is different. There's no template, no single method that works for everyone. Hemingway needed to stand. Capote needed to recline. Balzac needed coffee. Murakami needs his morning run. Each found what worked for them through trial and error, through paying attention to when the words came most easily, when the mind was most receptive. And once they found their routine, they protected it fiercely. Because routine is what allows creativity to become productivity. Inspiration is wonderful, but inspiration alone doesn't produce books. You need discipline. You need structure. You need the habit of showing up, day after day, and doing the work. Some people imagine writers as wild bohemians, waiting for the muse to strike. But most successful writers are actually quite disciplined. They treat writing like a job, because it is a job, even if it's a job that requires imagination. They show up at the same time each day. They work for a set number of hours. They meet their own deadlines. And they do this not because they feel inspired every day, but because they've committed to the work regardless of how they feel. The routine carries you through the uninspired days. The routine keeps you working when the words come hard. The routine is what separates people who want to write from people who actually do write. Rest now with these images of writers at work, standing at tall desks, reclining on sofas, running through early morning streets, sleeping beside completed manuscripts. Let these routines remind you that creativity needs structure, that discipline makes freedom possible. Every writer develops their own process, but some take it further than simple routines. They develop rituals, quirks, methods that seem strange from the outside but that unlock something essential in their creative process. Tonight, we explore the more unusual habits of writers, the eccentric, the surprising, the methods that worked even when they shouldn't have. We've already spoken about Joan Didion sleeping beside her finished manuscripts, and we return to this image because it reveals something deeper. She said this practice kept her connected to the work. Even in sleep, she remained in relationship with the words she'd written. It's a beautiful idea that the connection between writer and work doesn't end when the final period is typed. The work stays alive, present, demanding attention and care even after completion. Now let's turn to a writer whose method was as unusual as his literary output. Vladimir Nabokov, author of Lolita, Pale Fire, and many other brilliant, intricate novels, wrote on index cards. Not as notes or outlines, he wrote his actual novels on index cards. Each scene, each paragraph, would be written on a separate card. This allowed him to shuffle them, to rearrange scenes, to experiment with structure in a very physical, tactile way. He could spread the cards out, see the whole novel at once, move sections around until he found the perfect arrangement. It's a method that reflects his meticulous, controlling approach to prose. Nabokov was famous for the precision of his language, the intricate patterns hidden in his narratives. Writing on cards gave him flexibility and control, the ability to revise not just words but the entire structure of the book. Another writer found a way to force creativity when it refused to come naturally. Anthony Burgess, author of A Clockwork Orange and dozens of other novels, had a rather desperate method for jump-starting his imagination. When he was stuck, when nothing would come, he would open a Malay English dictionary at random. Yes, a Malay English dictionary, a language he'd learned while working in Malaysia. He'd pick a word, any word, and force himself to incorporate it into whatever he was writing. The strangeness of the word, the challenge of making it fit, would somehow break through the block. It was creativity through constraint. By giving himself an arbitrary, difficult requirement, he forced his mind to work in new directions. And he actually wrote an entire novel this way once, using the Malay English dictionary as his constant companion and source of inspiration. Some writers turn to substances, and not always in healthy ways. William Faulkner developed heavy drinking habits that eventually became a serious problem. He would go on benders that lasted days, drinking to excess, then struggling to write through hangovers and shaking hands. And yet somehow, even through this destructive pattern, he produced masterpieces. The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, Light in August. Faulkner even joked about it, in that dark, self-aware way that alcoholics sometimes do. He would say that he drank to be a writer, implying that suffering and dissolution were somehow necessary to creation. Of course, this isn't true, and Faulkner's drinking caused him enormous pain and likely shortened his life. But the myth of the tortured, drinking writer was strong in his era, and Faulkner played into it even as it damaged him. Not all quirks are destructive, though. Some are simply unusual. Franz Kafka, the Prague writer who gave us the Metamorphosis and the Trial, those nightmarish tales of bureaucracy and alienation, had an interesting way of seeking health and relaxation. He visited nudist camps. But here's the twist, he stayed clothed. He would go to these places where everyone else was naked, and he would sit there, fully dressed, observing. It's such a Kafka-like detail, isn't it? To go somewhere specifically for freedom and naturalness, but to maintain your own formality and separation. It fits perfectly with his writing, those stories where characters are always slightly outside normal society, observing it but never quite belonging. Kafka's life was divided between conflicting demands. He worked during the day, a job in insurance that he found mind-numbing but that provided financial stability. And then at night, he wrote. Exhausted from work, he would stay up late into the night, producing the strange, brilliant stories that would make him famous after his death. It was a grueling schedule, never enough sleep, always torn between the demands of employment and the demands of art. Another writer created a very specific physical environment to support her work. Flannery O'Connor, the Southern Gothic writer known for her dark, violent, spiritually complex stories, wrote facing a blank dresser. She set up her desk so that there was nothing to look at, just blank wood. No window views, no decorations, no distractions. Just the dresser and her thoughts. It's a method of enforced focus, removing all visual stimulation so that the only thing left is the work. In that blank space, her imagination could populate the page with the grotesque, haunting characters and situations that fill her stories. And O'Connor had another unusual aspect to her life. She raised peacocks. Yes, peacocks, those magnificent, strange birds with their enormous colorful tails. She kept dozens of them on her farm in Georgia. They wandered the grounds, their cries echoing across the property. Why peacocks? Perhaps she appreciated their strangeness, their beauty, their hint of the exotic in the rural South. They appear in some of her stories, mysterious, symbolic, beautiful, and slightly threatening. The peacocks seem like a perfect O'Connor touch, something that doesn't quite fit, that disrupts expectations, that brings an element of the extraordinary into ordinary life. Just like her fiction. We've also heard that Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, flew on an airplane only twice in his entire life. Despite writing hundreds of books and stories, many of them about space travel and distant futures, Asimov himself hated flying. He was deeply afraid of it. So he stayed on the ground, traveling by train or car when he had to travel at all, but mostly just staying in New York, writing. It's ironic, the man who imagined humanity spreading across the galaxy was too afraid to get on a plane. But it didn't matter. His imagination could go anywhere. His body could stay safely on Earth. These quirks and rituals, the index cards, the Malay dictionary, the blank dresser, the peacocks, they might seem like mere eccentricities. But each one served a purpose for the writer who employed it. Each one created the conditions that allowed creativity to flourish. Nabokov needed the physical flexibility of the index cards to match the flexibility of his narrative structures. Burgess needed the jolt of strangeness that random Malay words provided. O'Connor needed the visual blankness to focus her vision. Kafka needed the nighttime hours when the world was quiet and he could finally be himself. These aren't affectations, they're strategies. Solutions to the fundamental problem every writer faces. How do you access the imagination? How do you translate what's in your mind onto the page? How do you create the mental and physical conditions that allow words to flow? And the answer is different for everyone. There's no standard method, no reliable formula. Each writer has to discover, through years of trial and error, what works for them. Some of these discoveries seem strange to outsiders, but that doesn't matter. What matters is whether they work. So we see a writer sleeping beside her manuscript, another spreading index cards across a table, another reaching for a Malay dictionary, another staring at a blank dresser while peacocks cry outside. We see the infinite variety of human creativity, the endless ways that people find to make art happen. Rest now with these strange and beautiful rituals. Let them remind you that there are many paths to creation, that what seems odd from outside might be essential from inside. Some writers work slowly, crafting each sentence with painstaking care. Others write with astonishing speed, producing vast quantities of work in remarkably short time. Tonight, we explore the writers who demonstrated extraordinary productivity, those who wrote quickly, prolifically, and with endurance that seems almost superhuman. Let us begin with a writer who combined the speed of composition with absolute dedication to her craft and to her peculiar companions. Flannery O'Connor, whom we've already met with her blank dresser and her focus. She raised peacocks on her Georgia farm. These strange, beautiful birds became part of her life, wandering the grounds, their elaborate tails dragging behind them. In a way, the peacocks suited her. She wrote about the grotesque, the beautiful, the strange collision of the sacred and the profane. And peacocks are all of these things, magnificent and awkward, beautiful and harsh-voiced, creatures that don't quite seem to belong in the ordinary world. Now let's turn to a writer whose productivity was almost incomprehensible in its scope. Isaac Asimov flew on an airplane only twice, but he traveled extensively through the universe of his imagination. And the volume of work he produced is staggering. Asimov published hundreds of books and stories over his lifetime. Not dozens, hundreds. Science fiction, science fact, mysteries, history, guides to Shakespeare and the Bible. Asimov wrote about everything. He worked with incredible discipline and speed. He would sit at his typewriter and simply type. The words flowed out of him. He rarely struggled with writer's block because he rarely stopped writing long enough to experience it. If one project stalled, he would switch to another. He always had multiple books in progress at once. The sheer volume is astounding. Most writers would be thrilled to publish a handful of books in a lifetime. Asimov published more than 500. It's as if writing was as natural to him as breathing, a constant, effortless output that never seemed to diminish. Speed takes a different form with some writers, not necessarily volume, but the rapid completion of individual works. Georges Simenon, the Belgian writer who created the detective Maigret, wrote so fast that it became legendary. There's a story that Alfred Hitchcock once called him to discuss adapting one of his novels. Simenon asked Hitchcock to wait on the line, and then wrote the ending of the book while Hitchcock waited. Whether this story is entirely true or somewhat embellished, it captures something real about Simenon's process. He claimed he could finish a novel in a week. 1 week, from beginning to end. He would prepare meticulously beforehand, making notes about characters, settings, the basic plot. Then he would lock himself away and write in a white-hot burst of concentration. 7 days later, he would emerge with a completed manuscript. Simenon wrote hundreds of novels this way. He was astonishingly prolific, and remarkably, the speed didn't seem to diminish the quality. His Maigret novels are still read and admired today, taut psychological mysteries with wonderful atmosphere and character. In our own era, Stephen King has become synonymous with both horror fiction and remarkable productivity. King writes about 2,000 words daily. Every single day. Weekends, holidays, doesn't matter. He sits down and produces his 2,000 words. Over time, this discipline accumulates into dozens of novels, hundreds of stories, a body of work that spans genres and has defined popular fiction for decades. But here's a darker note in King's story. He struggled with addiction to alcohol and drugs for years. His drinking and drug use became so severe that he has said he doesn't remember writing parts of Cujo, one of his novels from that period. The book exists, he wrote it, but the actual process of creation has been erased from his memory by the substances he was using. King eventually got sober and has remained sober for decades now. But that lost time, that book written in a blackout, it's a sobering reminder of the costs that sometimes accompany creative productivity. Not all writing comes from healthy places. Sometimes it emerges despite damage, or even through damage. Speed isn't always constant, though. Sometimes it comes in bursts. John Steinbeck drafted The Grapes of Wrath with remarkable rapidity. He wrote the novel in just about 5 months, an astonishing pace for a book of such scope and ambition. The Grapes of Wrath tells the story of the Joad family, driven from their Oklahoma farm during the Dust Bowl, traveling to California in search of work and dignity. It's an epic of American struggle, compassion, and endurance. Steinbeck wrote with intense focus during those 5 months, and he had his own quirks to help him through the process. He used talismans while writing, small objects that he kept near him, that somehow helped focus his mind or brought him luck. We don't know exactly what these objects were, but they mattered to him. They were part of his process, part of what made the work possible. And then there are writers who take the exact opposite approach, who work not in bursts but over decades, building slowly toward completion. Helen Hooven Santmeyer spent 50 years working on one novel. 50 years. Half a century. The book was, And Ladies of the Club, a sweeping chronicle of life in a small Ohio town from the end of the Civil War through the Great Depression. It was a massive book, over 1,200 pages, following multiple generations of women in a literary club. Santmeyer worked on it slowly, over decades, writing in her spare time, never really expecting it to be published. She was a librarian and teacher. The novel was her private project, her life's work. She just kept adding to it, year after year, refining it, expanding it. And then, when Santmeyer was 88 years old, the novel was finally published. And it became a bestseller. After 50 years of work, after a lifetime of writing in obscurity, she suddenly found success. The Book of the Month Club selected it. Readers loved it. This woman in her late 80s, who had spent most of her life unknown, became a celebrated author. It's a remarkable story of patience and perseverance. Santmeyer didn't write for fame or money. She wrote because the work mattered to her. And she kept writing, kept working on her vision, for 5 decades. Most people would have given up. Most people would have decided it was pointless, that the book would never be published, that no one would ever read it. But Santmeyer kept going. These writers show us different approaches to productivity. Asimov wrote constantly, across many projects at once. Simenon wrote in intense bursts of focused speed. King writes steadily, day after day, accumulating work through sheer discipline. Steinbeck had periods of rapid creation. Santmeyer worked slowly but persistently across 50 years. There's no single right way to be productive. What matters is finding what works for you and then doing it consistently. Asimov needed constant output. Simenon needed intense focus. King needs daily discipline. Santmeyer needed patient, long-term dedication. But they all share something essential. They all actually did the work. They didn't just think about writing, dream about writing, talk about writing. They wrote. They filled pages. They finished books. They kept going even when it was hard, even when no one was paying attention, even when success seemed impossible. productivity in writing isn't about speed or volume per se. It's about the willingness to keep working, to show up, to add words to the page. Sometimes that happens quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes in great bursts, sometimes in steady accumulation. But it has to happen. And we see that productivity can look very different from outside than it feels from inside. King's 2,000 words a day might seem easy to someone who doesn't write, but maintaining that discipline day after day, year after year, is extraordinarily difficult. Sandmeyer's 50 years might seem like slowness, but it's actually incredible persistence, incredible faith in the value of the work. Rest now with these images of dedication, of words accumulating day by day, year by year, until pages become chapters, chapters become books, and books become a lifetime's legacy. Some writers labor in obscurity their whole lives. Others achieve remarkable success, their books reaching millions, their names becoming household words. Tonight, we explore fame in its many forms, the writers whose work spread far and wide, whose stories reached across the world. We've just spoken of Helen Houghton Santmeyer, who was 88 years old when her novel finally became a bestseller after 50 years of work. Imagine that moment, after a lifetime of writing in private, suddenly finding an audience. After half a century of patient work, suddenly experiencing success. It's a reminder that literary fame can come at any time, that it's never too late for a book to find its readers. Now let's turn to a writer whose fame was built over a long career of extraordinary productivity and popular appeal. Agatha Christie is perhaps the most successful mystery writer who ever lived. She had a particular method for plotting her intricate whodunits. She would eat apples in the bath while working out the details of her mysteries. Imagine her there, relaxing in warm water, eating an apple, thinking through the clues and red herrings, figuring out how the detective would solve the case. It's such a vivid image. Christie at her most relaxed, her mind working through murder and mystery. The results of all that bathtub plotting were astonishing. Christie's books have sold about 2 billion copies. 2 billion. It's almost impossible to comprehend that number. She wrote 66 detective novels and 14 short story collections, creating iconic characters like Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple. Her work has been translated into more languages than almost any other authors. And her reach extended beyond books. She wrote plays too, including The Mousetrap, which became one of the longest-running plays in theater history. It opened in London in 1952 and ran continuously for decades, year after year, performance after performance, audiences coming to see her ingenious plot unfold on stage. What's particularly remarkable is that Christie achieved all this despite dysgraphia, a learning disability that made writing physically difficult for her. She struggled with spelling and grammar, found the mechanical act of writing challenging. In her later years, she dictated her works rather than writing them by hand or typing them. But the disability never stopped her from creating. She simply found a way to work around it, to get the stories out of her mind and into the world. Not all literary success comes easily. Some writers face enormous rejection before finally breaking through. Louis L'Amour, who would become one of America's most beloved Western writers, faced about 200 rejections before he sold his first story. 200 times, he sent out his work and received it back with a polite or not so polite "no thank you." That level of rejection would crush most people. But L'Amour kept going, kept writing, kept submitting. His persistence has become legendary. And once he broke through, he went on to write over 100 novels, mostly westerns, that sold millions of copies. His books captured the American frontier, the cowboys and outlaws, the harsh landscapes, the values of independence and courage. For generations of readers, L'Amour defined what the Western could be. In a very different genre, another writer achieved extraordinary commercial success. Danielle Steele has sold over 800 million books. 800 million. She writes romance novels, family sagas, stories of love and loss and redemption. She's been publishing novels since the 1970s and has maintained astonishing productivity, sometimes releasing multiple books per year. Critics often dismiss her work, but readers love it. The numbers speak for themselves. Hundreds of millions of people have found something they needed in her stories. Steele's success shows that literary fame isn't always about critical acclaim. Sometimes it's about connecting with readers, giving them stories they want to read. There's no shame in that. In fact, there's something remarkable about reaching so many people, about creating stories that resonate with such a wide audience. Literary awards are another form of recognition, another way that writers achieve lasting fame. Edith Wharton was the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. She won it in 1921 for The Age of Innocence, her novel about upper-class New York society in the 1870s. Wharton knew that world intimately. She had grown up in it, understood its codes and constraints, its hypocrisies and occasional graces. And she wrote about it with precision and psychological insight. Being the first woman to win the Pulitzer was significant. It was a recognition that women writers could compete on equal terms with men, that their work deserved the highest honors. Wharton had already established herself as a major writer by then, but the Pulitzer confirmed it, made it official. What's striking about these writers is the sheer range of their success. Christie sold billions of books with her mysteries. L'Amour sold millions with his westerns. Steele sold hundreds of millions with her romances. Wharton won the highest literary prize for her novels of society. They worked in different genres, reached different audiences, were recognized in different ways, but all achieved remarkable reach. And reach isn't just about numbers, though numbers are one measure. It's about impact. Christie's work has shaped how we think about mystery and detective fiction. L'Amour helped keep the Western alive as a genre. Steele has provided comfort and escape to millions of readers. Wharton's novels are still studied in universities, still read by people who want to understand American history and society. Fame can be measured in many ways. Book sales, certainly. Awards and honors. Critical recognition. But also longevity, whether books continue to be read long after publication. Whether they enter the culture, become reference points that people recognize even if they haven't read the books themselves. Christie achieved this. Millions of people who have never read her books still know who Hercule Poirot is. Wharton achieved it too. The Age of Innocence is now considered a classic, assigned in literature courses, discussed by scholars. Even L'Amour, writing in a genre often dismissed as formulaic, created work that endures because it captures something true about a particular time and place. And then there's the question of persistence in the face of rejection. L'Amour's 200 rejections remind us that early failure doesn't predict final outcome. How many potential writers gave up after 10 rejections? After 50? After 100? L'Amour kept going past all of them, and went on to sell millions of books. It's impossible to know, when you're facing rejection, whether you're genuinely not ready yet, or whether you just haven't found the right publisher, the right timing, the right match between your work and an audience. L'Amour kept the faith. He believed in his work enough to keep submitting it, despite overwhelming evidence that no one wanted it. And eventually, he was proven right. These stories of fame and reach remind us that success in writing takes many forms. There's commercial success, measured in sales figures and bestseller lists. There's critical success, measured in awards and scholarly attention. There's popular success, measured in the love of readers who may never write a review or academic paper but who treasure the books nonetheless. And there's the success of persistence itself, of continuing to write despite obstacles, whether those obstacles are learning disabilities, countless rejections, or simply the difficulty of the work itself. Christie wrote despite dysgraphia. L'Amour wrote despite 200 rejections. They kept going, and their persistence paid off in ways they might never have imagined. Rest now with these stories of triumph and reach, of words that spread across the world, touching millions of readers. Let them remind you that dedication and persistence can lead to extraordinary places. Some writers set their stories in the world as it is. Others create entirely new worlds, realms of fantasy and imagination where anything is possible. Tonight, we explore the writers who built universes from their minds, who invented languages, drew maps, and populated their creations with beings that never existed except on the page. Let us begin with perhaps the greatest world builder of the 20th century, a man who didn't just create a story, but an entire mythology. J.R.R. Tolkien is known for The Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, for Middle-earth with its hobbits and elves, wizards and dragons. But what many people don't realize is that Tolkien invented languages before he created Middle-earth. He was a philologist, a scholar of languages, and for him the creation of language was a form of art. He invented Elvish languages, complete with grammar, vocabulary, historical development. And only after creating these languages did he build the world in which they would be spoken. This is extraordinary when you think about it. Most writers start with a story or a character and build outward from there. Tolkien started with the fundamental structure of language itself. Middle-earth grew from words, from the sounds and meanings of his invented tongues. The world was built to house the languages, not the other way around. Tolkien didn't create Middle-earth alone, though. He was part of a group of writers who met regularly to discuss their work. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were members of the Inklings, an informal literary group that met in Oxford. They would gather in Lewis's rooms or at a local pub, and they would read their works in progress to each other, offer criticism, discuss literature and faith and the craft of writing. Lewis was working on his Narnia books during this time. Tolkien was developing The Lord of the Rings. These two men, creating two of the most beloved fantasy worlds in literature, supported and challenged each other through the process. Not all imagined worlds are as elaborate as Middle-earth or Narnia. Some are stranger, darker, more surreal. Roald Dahl wrote in a small garden hut, a simple structure at the back of his property. Inside this hut, he kept strange objects that provided inspiration. A ball made from chocolate wrapper foil that he'd accumulated over years, pieces of his own hip bone from a surgery, other odd mementos and curiosities. Surrounded by these talismans, he created the wonderfully strange worlds of his children's books. Dahl's worlds are unsettling even as they delight. Willy Wonka's chocolate factory is magical but also dangerous. The BFG's giant country is wonderful but threatening. Matilda's world contains both kindness and cruelty. Dahl understood that children aren't frightened by strangeness, they're fascinated by it. His imagined worlds gave child readers the thrill of danger alongside the comfort of ultimate justice. Before Dahl, before Tolkien, another writer created one of America's most enduring fantasy worlds. L. Frank Baum, who created The Land of Oz, had an unlikely beginning for a fantasy writer. He once wrote a manual on raising chickens. Yes, a practical how-to book about poultry farming. Baum tried many professions: actor, newspaper editor, traveling salesman, chicken breeder. He was always searching for the thing that would bring him success. And then he wrote The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The book was published in 1900 and became an immediate sensation. Children loved it. And Baum kept writing Oz books, 14 in total, each one expanding the magical land, introducing new characters, new regions, new adventures. Oz became as real to readers as any place they could visit. And all of it came from the imagination of a man who had once written about chickens. Moving across the ocean and forward in time, we find another creator of an imagined world that has touched millions. Ellen Montgomery drew from her childhood for Anne of Green Gables. She grew up on Prince Edward Island in Canada, and the landscapes, the small-town life, the beauty and harshness of rural existence, all of it poured into her books. But Anne herself was pure imagination, an orphan girl with red hair and an irrepressible spirit, whose romantic notions and fierce intelligence made her unforgettable. Montgomery transformed her own experiences into something both realistic and magical. The world of Anne is grounded in real places, real social structures, but seen through the eyes of a girl whose imagination transfigures everything. A pond becomes a lake of shining waters. A cherry tree becomes a snow queen, and sees the world not as it is but as it could be, and her vision changes everything around her. In the 20th century, another creator of an imagined world worked through one of history's darkest periods. Tove Jansson created the Mummins during World War II. She was living in Finland, and the world was consumed by conflict and horror. And in the midst of all that darkness, she created these gentle, philosophical creatures, the Mummins, who live in a valley and have quiet adventures. The Mummins became beloved in Scandinavia and eventually around the world. They offered comfort during a time of fear, a reminder that gentleness and thoughtfulness and simple pleasures still mattered, even when the world seemed to be falling apart. Contemporary children's literature continues to build worlds, often drawing on cultural traditions to create something new. Grace Lynn dreamed of being an ice skater when she was young. But instead, she became an author and illustrator, creating books that reflect Chinese folklore and culture. Her books weave together traditional stories and contemporary life, creating worlds where magic and reality coexist naturally. They give children of Chinese heritage characters and stories that reflect their culture, and they introduce all children to the richness of Chinese mythology and values. Lynn's books show how an imagined world doesn't have to be completely invented from scratch. It can draw on cultural traditions, on folklore, on the stories that communities have told for generations, and then transform them, make them new, make them speak to contemporary readers. And here's a broader truth that applies to so many children's authors, many of them channeled hardship into their stories. Dahl lost a daughter and processed grief through his writing. Baum struggled financially for years before finding success with us. Montgomery dealt with depression throughout her life. Jansson created the Mummins during wartime. Lynn worked to create representation that she herself had lacked as a child. Creating imagined worlds is often an act of transformation. You take the difficult, the painful, the lacking, transform it into something beautiful. You create a world where justice prevails, where the underdog wins, where imagination has power, where kindness matters. These writers understood that children need both realism and magic. They need stories that acknowledge difficulty but also provide hope. They need worlds that are different from ours but that speak to our deepest needs and fears. Tolkien's Middle-earth is a world where small people can change the course of history, where friendship and courage matter more than power. Narnia is a world where children become kings and queens, where faith is rewarded. Oz is a world where home is precious but adventure is necessary. Anne's world is one where imagination can make reality more beautiful. The Moomin's Valley is a place where gentleness is strength. These worlds matter because they give us alternatives to think about. They show us different ways of being, different values, different possibilities. They let us step outside our own reality for a while and inhabit somewhere else, and often, when we return, we see our own world with new eyes. The creation of imagined worlds is one of literature's most profound gifts. It requires tremendous imagination, certainly, but also deep compassion, because you're creating a world that you hope will comfort, inspire, or challenge others. You're building a place that doesn't exist except in words, but that can feel as real as anywhere we've actually been. Rest now in these imagined worlds, valleys filled with Moomins, islands of green gables, roads of yellow brick, and ancient lands where elves still dwell. Let your mind wander through these places that never were but always will be. The path to becoming a writer has never been straightforward. But in our contemporary world, that path has become even more diverse, with writers coming from unexpected backgrounds, bringing knowledge from other fields, creating work that crosses traditional boundaries. Tonight, we explore some of these modern paths to literature. Let us begin with a writer whose background seems far removed from literature. Michel Houellebecq, the controversial French novelist, studied agronomy before turning to writing. Yes, agronomy, the science of soil management and crop production. It seems an unlikely preparation for a literary career. But after his agricultural studies, Houellebecq later worked with computers, writing technical documentation and working in the emerging field of information technology. These technical backgrounds might seem irrelevant to fiction, but perhaps they influenced his writing in subtle ways. Houellebecq's novels are known for their cold, analytical approach to human behavior, their systematic examination of contemporary society. Maybe those years studying systems, whether agricultural or computational, shaped his ability to dissect social structures with such precision. Another writer combined scholarship with storytelling in remarkable ways. Umberto Eco owned over 30,000 books. 30,000. His library was legendary, floor-to-ceiling shelves, multiple rooms, an entire universe of knowledge housed in his Italian home. Eco was a professor of semiotics, a scholar of medieval philosophy, a public intellectual who wrote about everything from aesthetics to Superman comics. And from this vast storehouse of knowledge came his novels. The Name of the Rose, his most famous book, is set in a medieval monastery and involves murders connected to a mysterious book. It's a detective story, but also a meditation on knowledge, faith, interpretation, and the nature of truth. Only someone with Eco's breadth of learning could have written it. The book draws on medieval theology, literary theory, historical detail, and philosophical complexity. Eco studied topics ranging from medieval philosophy to Superman. He wrote scholarly works and best-selling novels. He moved between academic and popular writing with ease. His career shows how knowledge from many fields can enrich fiction, how deep learning and popular storytelling can combine. Some writers looked not backward to history but forward to the future. Arthur C. Clarke predicted satellites and the internet long before they became reality. Clarke was both a science fiction writer and a scientist. He understood physics, astronomy, technology, and he used that understanding to imagine futures that seemed fantastic but were actually scientifically plausible. In 1945, Clarke published a technical paper describing how satellites in geostationary orbit could be used for telecommunications. This was before satellites existed, before space programs, before anyone had left Earth's atmosphere. But Clarke could see it. He understood the physics, the possibilities. And decades later, his vision became reality. Today, satellites in Clarke orbit, named after him, provide communications around the world. Clarke also anticipated the internet, imagining a future where people could access information instantly from anywhere in the world. His predictions weren't wild guesses, they were informed extrapolations from existing science. He could see where technology was heading because he understood the underlying principles. Not every writer's background involves advanced study or technical knowledge. Some come to writing from more bohemian paths. Jack Kerouac never learned to drive. This is a striking detail for the author of On the Road, a novel that celebrates American automobile culture, the freedom of the highway, the romance of movement. Kerouac wrote the definitive novel of road travel, but he himself couldn't drive. He was always the passenger, the observer, dependent on others to take him where he wanted to go. But perhaps this made his writing stronger. As a passenger, he could pay attention in ways drivers can't. He could watch the landscape, study his companions, let his mind wander. And when it came time to write, he had a method as unique as his perspective. Kerouac wrote on the road on a paper scroll. He fed a long roll of paper into his typewriter so he wouldn't have to stop to change pages. He wanted to maintain momentum, to capture the flow of experience without interruption. One scroll reached about 120 feet long, a continuous stream of words, capturing the rhythm and energy of the American road. The scroll was both practical and symbolic. Practical because it let him type without stopping. Symbolic because it matched the endless highway, the continuous journey, the refusal to be contained by conventional boundaries. Another contemporary writer combined speed with spiritual themes. Paulo Coelho wrote The Alchemist in 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks for a book that would become an international phenomenon, translated into dozens of languages, selling millions of copies around the world. The Alchemist is a fable about following your dreams, about the spiritual journey, about discovering your personal legend. Coelho has said the book came to him in a rush of inspiration. Sometimes creativity works that way. You struggle for months or years with one project, and then something else flows out effortlessly, as if it was already complete and just needed to be transcribed. And finally, let's consider a writer from an earlier era whose motivations were refreshingly mundane. Giacomo Casanova wrote his autobiography out of boredom. He was old, his adventurous life behind him, living in exile as a librarian in a castle in Bohemia. To pass the time, he decided to write the story of his life. And what a life it had been! Casanova claimed to have had 122 lovers over his lifetime. His autobiography is full of romantic and sexual adventures, gambling, escapes from prison, meetings with famous figures of the Enlightenment. It's a vivid portrait of 18th century European high society, seen from the perspective of a brilliant, charming, and scrupulous adventurer. But it was written out of boredom. Not moral urgency, not artistic ambition, not the desire to leave a legacy, just boredom. An old man with nothing better to do, remembering his glory days. And from that boredom came one of the most entertaining and historically valuable memoirs ever written. These modern paths to literature show us how diverse the routes to writing can be. Houellebecq came through agronomy and computer work. Eco came through vast scholarship. Clarke came through science. Kerouac came through bohemian wandering. Coelho came through spiritual seeking. Casanova came through boredom. There's no single pathway, no required training, no essential background. Writers come from agriculture and academia, from science and the road, from spiritual practice and adventurous living. What they share isn't a common origin but a common destination, the desire and ability to transform experience into words. And we see that knowledge from any field can enrich writing. Houellebecq's technical background gave him analytical tools. Eco's scholarship gave him depth. Clarke's scientific understanding gave him vision. Kerouac's passenger's perspective gave him observation. Coelho's spiritual seeking gave him themes. Casanova's adventurous life gave him material. The modern world, with its increased specialization and diverse career paths, has actually expanded the possibilities for writers. You can be a scientist and a novelist, a scholar and a storyteller, a technician and a poet. Each brings something unique to the work. And sometimes the path to writing is indirect. You study agronomy, work with computers, and eventually write novels about contemporary alienation. You accumulate 30,000 books and write a medieval mystery. You understand physics and imagine the future. You hitchhike across America and type your novel on a scroll. You live adventurously and write about it when you're old and bored. The journey matters as much as the destination. Everything you learn, everything you experience, every job you take and every place you go, it all becomes material. It all shapes how you see the world, what stories you tell, what truths you can access. Rest now with these varied paths to literature. Let them remind you that there are many ways to become a writer, and that all experience is potentially valuable to the craft. Every writer leaves something behind, words on pages that outlast their authors, stories that continue long after the storyteller has gone. Tonight, we explore memory and legacy, the ways writers have shaped how we remember, how their work carries forward, and how they themselves are remembered. We return now to Giacomo Casanova and his claim of having had 122 lovers over his lifetime. Whether the number is precisely accurate or inflated by time and ego, we cannot know. But what's certain is that Casanova lived boldly, adventurously, and that his memoirs captured a world that would otherwise be lost. Through his writing, we can glimpse 18th century Venice, Paris, Vienna, see the glittering surfaces and dark underbelly of aristocratic society. Casanova's legacy is that vivid portrait of a vanished world. Some writers reshaped entire genres, transforming how we understand and create certain kinds of literature. Maya Angelou reshaped autobiography with her memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. Published in 1969, the book brought unflinching honesty to the memoir form. Angelou wrote about racism, trauma, resilience, identity. She held nothing back. The book was both deeply personal and universally resonant. It showed that autobiography could be literature, that the story of one Black woman's life in America could speak to fundamental human experiences of suffering and transcendence. But Angelou was more than a writer. She was also a performer and activist. She sang, she danced, she acted. She worked for civil rights alongside Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. At one point in her varied life, she worked as a streetcar conductor in San Francisco, one of the first Black women to hold that position. She took the job at age 16, simply refusing to accept the racial barriers that should have prevented her. Later in life, Angelou would rent hotel rooms specifically to write. She couldn't work at home. There were too many distractions. too many demands on her attention. So she would check into a hotel, strip the walls of their decorations and pictures, and create a bare, focused space where she could work. It was her way of creating the solitude and concentration that writing demands. And then came a remarkable honor. Angelou appeared on a U.S. quarter. It was a recognition not just of her literary achievements but of her broader significance to American culture. Her face on currency, a fitting tribute to someone who had spent her life giving voice to experiences that had been silenced. Some writers bring their professional expertise from other fields into their literary work. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie studied medicine before turning to writing. She was in medical school in Nigeria when she realized that her true calling was literature. It was a difficult decision. Medicine is a respected, stable profession, while writing is uncertain. But Adichie followed her passion. Her novels weave Nigerian history into personal stories. Half of A Yellow Sun tells the story of the Biafran War through the lives of ordinary people caught up in conflict. Americana explores immigration, race, identity, and love through the journey of a Nigerian woman who moves to America. Adichie brings historical knowledge and cultural insight to her fiction, creating works that are both intimate and sweeping. And her influence extends beyond her novels. Adichie's TED Talk, "We Should All Be Feminists," has reached millions of people around the world. It's been viewed online, quoted in speeches, sampled in songs. From that talk came a short book of the same title, a clear, accessible argument for gender equality. Adichie has become a voice not just in literature but in broader cultural conversations about feminism, race, and identity. Contemporary poets also build legacies, often drawing on personal experiences to create work that resonates with others. Lang Leave's work reflects her refugee experiences. Leave was born in a Thai refugee camp to Cambodian parents fleeing the Khmer Rouge. She grew up in Australia, carrying the trauma and displacement of her family's history. Her poetry speaks to love, loss, longing, but always with the undercurrent of displacement, of belonging nowhere completely, of searching for home. Her work has found enormous audiences online, especially among young people who connect with her direct, emotional style. Leave shows how poetry can speak across cultural boundaries, how personal experience can become universal. These writers, Angelou, Adichie, Leave, they all transformed personal experience into art that speaks to broader audiences. Angelou took her experiences of racism and resilience and created literature that helped readers understand the Black American experience. Adichie took her knowledge of Nigerian history and made it accessible and deeply human. Leave took refugee experiences and transformed them into poetry that speaks to anyone who has felt displaced or lost. Their legacies are built not just on the quality of their writing but on their willingness to bear witness, to tell difficult truths, to represent experiences that might otherwise go unspoken. They give voice to the voiceless. They make visible what has been invisible. They help us understand lives different from our own. And this is perhaps the highest function of literature, to create empathy, to bridge divides, to help us understand each other. These writers do this not through preaching or political argument but through story, through the intimate revelation of lived experience. Angelou writes about being a black girl in the segregated South, and suddenly readers who have never experienced racism can feel it, understand it, recognize its deep wrongness. Adichie writes about the Biafran War, and readers around the world can grasp the human cost of political conflict. Leaf writes about displacement, and readers recognize their own feelings of not quite belonging. This is the legacy these writers are building, not just books on shelves but changed hearts, expanded understanding, greater compassion. They are shaping how we see each other, how we think about history, how we understand our shared humanity. And their influence ripples outward in unexpected ways. Angelou's memoir gave permission to other writers to tell their truths unflinchingly. Adichie's TED Talk changed conversations about feminism. Leaf's poetry showed that direct, emotional verse could find huge audiences in the digital age. Each generation of writers builds on what came before while creating something new. They inherit traditions but transform them. They draw on their own experiences but make them relevant to others. They speak from specific cultural positions but reach toward universal truths. And in doing so, they create legacies that outlast them. Long after these writers are gone, their words will remain. Future readers will encounter their work and be changed by it. New writers will be influenced by them, will learn from their techniques and their courage. This is the great gift and responsibility of writing, that your words can outlive you, can continue to speak when you cannot, can touch people you will never meet. It's why writers work so hard, care so much, struggle through difficulty and doubt. Because they're creating something that can last. Rest now with these thoughts of legacy and memory, of words that echo through time, of stories that carry forward, of writers whose influence spreads far beyond their own lives. Children's literature holds a special place in our hearts. The books we read as children often stay with us our entire lives. The writers who create these books understand that they're not just entertaining children, they're shaping imaginations, teaching values, helping young people understand the world. Tonight, we explore the writers who dedicated themselves to children's literature and the care they brought to that work. Let us begin with a writer whose career extended far beyond books. Mo Willems, beloved children's author and illustrator, worked on Sesame Street before creating his own books. He was a writer and animator for that groundbreaking educational show, learning how to engage children, how to make learning fun, how to respect young viewers' intelligence while entertaining them. That experience shaped everything he would later do. Willems's books, the Elephant and Piggy series, the Pigeon books, Nuffle Bunny, are masterpieces of simplicity and emotional truth. They're funny, they're touching, and they never talk down to children. They deal with real feelings, frustration, jealousy, friendship, fear, but in ways that young children can understand and recognize in their own lives. Some children's book series become family projects, collaborations that span decades. The Magic Treehouse series is a family project, created by author Mary Pope Osborne and illustrated by Sal Murdocha. The series has been running since the 1990s, with dozens of books following siblings Jack and Annie as they travel through time and space in a magical treehouse. Each book teaches something about history or science while telling an engaging adventure story. What's remarkable is the sustained collaboration. Murdocha has illustrated book after book, creating the visual world that matches Osborne's words. It's a partnership that has brought history and learning to millions of children, showing them that reading can be both educational and exciting. Then there are illustrators whose contributions to children's literature span generations. Quentin Blake has illustrated over 300 books. 300. He's most famous for his illustrations of Roald Dahl's books, those loose, energetic, slightly chaotic drawings that perfectly match Dahl's anarchic storytelling. But Blake has illustrated books by many authors, and he's also created his own books as both writer and illustrator. One of Blake's own books, Zagazoo, has no words at all. It tells its story entirely through pictures, showing a couple whose lives are turned upside down when a mysterious creature called Zagazoo arrives. Without a single word, Blake conveys humor, love, exhaustion, joy, all the complexities of parenting and family life. It's a testament to his skill as a visual storyteller. Children themselves can be authors, though this is rare. Dorothy Strait published a book when she was just a child herself. She wrote it at age 4 and it was published when she was 6, making her one of the youngest published authors in history. The book was called How the World Began, and it reflected a child's wonder at creation and existence. It's a reminder that creativity isn't limited by age, that sometimes the youngest among us have important things to say. And then there are authors whose generosity extended beyond their own lifetimes. J.M. Barrie, the creator of Peter Pan, gave the rights to his most famous work to a children's hospital. Great Ormond Street Hospital in London received the copyright to Peter Pan as a gift from Barrie. This was an extraordinary act of generosity. Peter Pan was Barrie's most valuable creation, his most famous work, and he gave away the rights to benefit sick children. The hospital still benefits today from this gift. Even though copyright normally expires after a certain number of years, the British government extended the Peter Pan copyright indefinitely for the benefit of the hospital. Royalties from Peter Pan productions, adaptations, merchandise, they all help fund medical care for children. Barrie created a character who never grew up, and in doing so, he created a legacy that continues to help real children more than a century later. Some children's books popularize stories that become part of cultural mythology. Hans Brinker, a novel by American author Mary Mapes Dodge, popularized a Dutch myth about a boy who saved his town by sticking his finger in a leaking dike. The story wasn't actually part of traditional Dutch folklore. Dodge invented it for her novel, but the story was so compelling that it became associated with Dutch culture. In the Netherlands, tourists still ask about the boy and the dike, a legend that came not from Dutch tradition but from an American author's imagination. It's a fascinating example of how fiction can create mythology, how a story can become true in cultural memory even when it was invented whole cloth. And we must remember the mathematical side of some children's authors. Lewis Carroll's real name was Charles Dodgson. Carroll was a pen name he used for his literary works. As Charles Dodgson, he was a mathematician and logician at Oxford University, teaching and publishing scholarly works on mathematics. His mathematical mind is evident in Alice's adventures in Wonderland, the logical puzzles, the paradoxes, the playful manipulation of rules and expectations. Carroll understood that children enjoy intellectual challenge, that they appreciate cleverness and wordplay. The Alice books are strange, surreal, sometimes even disturbing, but they're also brilliant explorations of logic, language, and meaning. They work on multiple levels, entertaining children while also engaging adults with their sophistication. Carroll brought his mathematical precision to his fantasy, creating books that are both whimsical and carefully constructed. These creators of children's literature understood something important, that children deserve the best we can give them. They deserve beautiful illustrations, engaging stories, respect for their intelligence and emotional depth. They deserve books that will challenge them, comfort them, make them laugh, help them understand themselves and the world. Willems brings his Sesame Street expertise to every page. Blake brings his decades of illustration experience to each drawing. Barry brought such love for his creation that he gave it away to help children. Dodgson brought mathematical precision to fantasy. Each gave children their very best work. And children's literature creates continuity across generations. The books we loved as children, we read to our own children. The Magic Treehouse books that delighted one generation now delight the next. Blake's illustrations have been bringing joy for decades. Peter Pan has been enchanting children since 1904. Alice in Wonderland has been confounding and delighting readers since 1865. These books become shared experiences, common references, part of the cultural inheritance we pass down. They shape how children understand story, develop imagination, learn about emotions and relationships and the world. The writers who create children's books are doing sacred work, in a sense. They're reaching children at the most formative time, when imagination is most alive, when stories sink deepest. The books we read as children become part of who we are. They shape our dreams, our values, our sense of possibility. And so these writers take their responsibility seriously. They craft their words carefully. They revise and refine. They work with talented illustrators. They create books that can be read over and over, that reveal new things with each reading, that grow with the child. Rest now with these thoughts of children's literature, of books passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, carrying wonder and wisdom forward through time. We've traveled through many lives tonight, through the routines and rituals, the struggles and successes, the quiet moments and grand achievements of writers across time. Now, as we near the end of our journey, let us reflect on some final quiet notes, the small details that reveal larger truths about the writing life. Let us return once more to Lewis Carroll, whose real name was Charles Dodgson. We know he was a mathematician, that he wrote Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, that he worked in purple ink. These details sketch a picture of a man who lived between worlds, the logical world of mathematics and the fantastical world of Wonderland, the formal identity of Charles Dodgson and the playful persona of Lewis Carroll. He contained multitudes, this quiet Oxford Don who created one of the most enduring fantasies in literature. Now let's consider a writer known for his economy of language, his stripped-down prose style. Ernest Hemingway rewrote endings obsessively. He would finish a story or novel, then go back and rewrite the ending. Then rewrite it again. And again. He's said to have written the ending of A Farewell to Arms 39 times before he was satisfied. 39 attempts to find exactly the right final words, the perfect way to conclude the story. This obsessive revision reflects Hemingway's broader philosophy of writing, which became known as the iceberg theory. The idea is that most of a story's meaning should remain beneath the surface, unsaid. Only the tip of the iceberg shows above the water, but readers sense the vast mass hidden below. Hemingway stripped his prose down to the minimum, removing everything inessential, trusting readers to understand what was left unsaid. This theory shaped modern fiction, influencing countless writers who came after. The idea that less can be more, that what you leave out can be as important as what you include, it revolutionized how people thought about storytelling. Some writers struggled with physical ailments that made their work harder. Washington Irving, the American author of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle, suffered from insomnia. Night after night, unable to sleep, his mind restless and active when it should have been at rest. Perhaps the insomnia fed his imagination, giving him long dark hours to think and dream. Or perhaps it simply made his life more difficult, leaving him tired during the day when he needed to write. But Irving persevered, and he achieved something remarkable. He was among the first Americans to actually live by writing, to support himself entirely through his literary work. Before Irving, American writers generally needed other sources of income. But Irving's books sold well enough, both in America and abroad, that he could make writing his profession. He helped prove that American literature could stand on its own, that American writers could compete with their European counterparts. Charles Dickens had interests that extended beyond writing into the mysterious and supernatural. Dickens belonged to the Ghost Club, a paranormal investigation society in London. Yes, the creator of Ebenezer Scrooge and the Ghosts of Christmas was himself interested in real ghosts, in seances and spiritualism. The Victorian era was fascinated by the supernatural, and Dickens shared that fascination. He attended seances, investigated supposedly haunted houses, corresponded with people who claimed to have had supernatural experiences. Dickens also practiced mesmerism, an early form of hypnotism. He believed he had the power to put people into trances, and he used this technique to try to help friends who were suffering from pain or illness. Whether it actually worked or whether it was purely psychological suggestion, we cannot say. But Dickens was convinced of his own mesmerizing abilities. And Dickens walked. He walked long distances through London for inspiration, sometimes walking 10 or 15 miles in a single outing. He walked through wealthy neighborhoods and poor ones, through parks and along the Thames, observing everything. The city poured into his novels, the fog and the crowds, the shops and the streets, the infinite variety of London life. Walking was how he absorbed it all, how he stayed connected to the living source of his material. These small details, the insomnia, the ghost hunting, the long walks, they remind us that writers are human. They have quirks and interests, struggles and passions beyond their work. They're not just writing machines, they're full, complex people who happen to create literature. And here's a broader truth that applies to so many writers across history. Many authors developed personal routines to survive the solitary work of writing. We've seen this throughout our journey tonight. The standing desks and the lying down positions. The coffee and the long runs. The blank dressers and the index cards. The hotel rooms rented just for writing and the manuscripts kept beside the bed. These routines aren't arbitrary. They're survival strategies. Writing is lonely work. You sit by yourself for hours, creating something from nothing, unsure whether it's any good, unsure whether anyone will care. The routine provides structure, gives you something to hold on to when the work itself feels uncertain. The routine says, this is what I do. This is who I am. Every day, I show up. Every day, I work. Regardless of inspiration or mood or external success, I maintain my practice. And the quiet work of writing continues across generations. New writers emerge, bringing new perspectives, new stories, new ways of using language. They read the writers who came before, learn from them, build on their innovations, react against their limitations. Literature is a conversation across time, with each generation adding new voices, new concerns, new forms. The writers we've explored tonight, from Ben Jonson in 1616 to contemporary voices like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and Lang Leave, they all contributed to this ongoing conversation. They all added something to the great river of literature, changing its course in small or large ways. Some invented new forms. Some perfected existing ones. Some broke rules. Some created rules. Some wrote for fame, some for money, some simply because they had to, because the words demanded to be written. But all of them shared this: they filled blank pages with words. They created something where there had been nothing. They took the chaos of thought and feeling and experience and shaped it into sentences, paragraphs, chapters, books. They did the hard, lonely, necessary work of making literature. And now, as you drift towards sleep, let these stories settle gently in your mind. All these writers with their quirks and habits, their successes and struggles, their diverse paths and methods. Let them remind you that creativity takes many forms, that there's no single right way to create, that what matters is the dedication to the work. Let the images drift through your thoughts, writers at their desks, standing or sitting or lying down. Writers walking through cities or sitting in garden huts. Writers facing blank dressers or sleeping beside finished manuscripts. Writers persisting through rejection, through illness, through doubt. The quiet work of writing continues. Pages fill. Books take shape. Stories enter the world. And somewhere, always, a writer is beginning again, facing a new blank page, ready to see what words will come. Rest now. Let these stories carry you gently into sleep. The writers have done their work. Now it's time to rest.